Our next speaker, Mark Clark, is the Managing Director of Regis Resources. Mark's had 20 years of experience in the corporate advisory and public company administration world. In his early career, he held a senior position at an international advisory firm providing financial and corporate advice to clients in the mining industry. He clearly then decided to try it for himself, and he joined Equigold in 1995, originally held the roles of Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary, and was responsible for the financial, administration and legal functions of the company, was closely involved in the development and operation of their projects in both Australia and the Ivory Coast. He was a director of Equigold from April 2003 and was managing director from December 2005 until its $1.2 billion merger with Lihir Gold in June 2008. He was appointed managing director of Regis Resources in May 2009, and he's a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which we won't hold against him. Thank you. Mark.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to Diggers and Dealers for the opportunity to present Regis Resources to this conference for the very first time. I've titled my presentation today, Building a Quality Gold Business, and I've done that quite deliberately because I think in the 12 months or so that my fellow directors and I have been running Regis Resources, we've really taken this company from a situation where it had what was seen to be a good little starter project, but probably fair to say it was in a situation where it was going to be very difficult for that company as it was then to finance and develop that project. And we've taken it now to a point where that mine is currently being commissioned. We'll be pouring gold there by the end of the month. And I think by the end of the presentation you'll see that we now have a pipeline that should see this company within 2 years from now producing in excess of 200,000 ounces of gold a year, and should see us with reserves in the order of 1.8 to 2 million ounces. So I think it has been a transforming year for Regis, and we're very excited about the future for the company. The management of the company, myself, Nick Georgetta and Morgan Hart were all appointed to the board of Regis at an EGM in May last year. We were all previously executive directors of Equigold, as Andy mentioned. We listed that company on the ASX in 1996 for $40 million. Over the time that we ran the company, we developed 3 mining operations in Australia and a 4th in Ivory Coast in West Africa, and we ultimately sold the business by way of merger to Lihir in June 2008 for $1.2 billion. Since joining the board, we've bolstered the board with 2 experienced non-executive directors in Ross Kestel and Mark Oakerby. The capital structure of the company, we've got 414 million shares on issue. So at today's share price, market cap of around 420 million Australian dollars. Our major shareholders are Newmont with 15%, and that shareholding is a legacy of the fact that this was originally a Newmont project which was sold to the minority joint venture partner in 2004 and 2006 for shares in the company. Directors and management hold about 12% or slightly more than that now, and Libra Advisors, a fund in the US, are our only other substantial shareholder at this point. So turning to the Duketon project, it's basically the only portfolio of tenements that we've got in the company at this point in time. It's a large tenement package located about 350 kilometres north-northeast of Kalgoorlie. Currently have about 2 million ounces of good quality resources at the project, and something in the order of 762,000 ounces of mineable reserves. And those reserves currently sit in 2 operations. Firstly, the Moolart Well project, where we're just in the process of commissioning the plant as we speak. 604,000 ounces there at a grade of 1.5. And at Earlston, which is located 45 kilometres south of Moolart Well, another 158,000 ounces. Until the discovery of the Garden Well deposit and the fact that that's now emerging as a standalone operation, it was originally our intention that Earlston would be trucked and processed through the Moolart Well plant. That's now becoming a scenario where we see Earlston now being treated through the Garden Well plant that we foresee building in 2012. This is a typical cross-section of the Moolart Well deposit. You can see it's got about a 4 to 5 metre transported overburden in the paleo channel sitting on top of the deposit. And then the bulk of the ore actually sits in a paleochannel laterite blanket, all within 20 metres of surface, at a stripping ratio of about 2.5 to 1. The remainder of the 604,000 ounces is in the oxide zone from 20 metres to 80 metres. So the entire deposit is in free dig oxide material, all within 80 metres of surface, and that's obviously what makes it a very robust project. So the project that we're developing as we speak is 555,000 ounces at Moolart Well. We see really this as the starter project. We believe that Moolart Well in the oxide zone will continue to grow, but this is the project that we're working on at the moment. It's a traditional truck and shovel mining operation, single-stage crushing, single-stage grinding, CIL processing plant. So it's the sort of plant that we've built 4 times in our time at Equigold, and Nick Giorgetta, our chairman's built the same plant a number of times in his days at Samantha and Western Mining. We're looking at a nominal nameplate capacity here of about 2 million tonnes per annum. That gives us, on the starter project, around 6.5-year mine life, producing around 90,000 ounces a year. We do believe, however, that the project will end up being able to be pushed a lot harder than that. We believe that the plant will end up doing more like 2.5 to 2.6 million tonnes per annum. And the reason that we think that is that the Bondwork Index testing on the laterite deposit shows nominally a hardness of about 16.7, which is a pretty hard deposit. But in actual fact, because of the makeup of the laterites, we think that more likely in the operating scenario, the Bondwork Index will come back to around 11 or 12, which will allow us to push the plant a lot harder and end up producing in excess of 100,000 ounces a year from the project. The rest of the metallurgy at Moolart Well is very good, low cyanide consumption and very good recovery. One of the first things that we did when we took control of the company in May last year was to completely revise the feasibility study that had been done prior to our involvement. That previous feasibility study showed a capital cost of $125 million to develop the project. We went back to first principles and the fact that we've got our own development team to build these projects, redid the feasibility and came up with a capital cost to develop a very similar project at $73 million. The proof is now in the pudding. We're moving into commissioning. We turned on the power at Moolart Well a few days ago, and we're fully in commissioning mode now, and we're all but done on the construction, and we're very much on budget to achieve the construction at that $73 million. It's worth noting that we haven't saved money by going second-hand equipment or cutting any other corners. It's basically the fact that we've been able to do this in-house with our own excellent team of development people that's allowed us to generate those savings. In terms of operating costs, the project will have a cash cost of around about $500 an ounce Australian of gold production, and then there's some additional royalties that sit on top of that which will take total operating costs to around 560 Australian dollars an ounce. It's worth noting that the costs of our major inputs, being diesel, cyanide and steel consumables, are currently all lower than the feasibility estimates that we've used. So we believe that those cost estimates look very robust at this stage. The NPV of the project, when you take into account the hedging that we've done and a $1,200 an ounce Aussie spot price, is $212 million. And importantly, the project repays its capital within the first 15 months of operation. I'll just touch very briefly on hedging in passing. We've done 190,000 ounces of gold hedging, basically protecting the first 3 years of production at Moolart Well. We're very comfortable with the position that we've got. It's 190,000 ounces at around 1,360 Australian dollars an ounce. Currently represents around 25% of our reserve position, but I think as you see through the presentation, as we bring on stream Garden Well and start converting some of the other resources on this tenement package, you can see that that hedge position will become pretty insignificant as we move forward. So where is Moolart Well as we speak? Basically, we've got no native title at Moolart Well. It's all on granted mining leases, and there's no registered native title claimants in the area. As I mentioned, we are now fully in commissioning phase. We turned on the power on the 28th of July, and Outotec just handed the mill across to our operating team as of today, and we expect to commission the crusher tomorrow. So basically we're all but there. We've already run for extended periods over the last few days of commissioning at or better than the 2 million tonnes per annum nameplate. So that gives us great confidence that we will be pushing this mill a lot harder than the 2 million tonnes. So over the next week or so, we'll move fully into operating mode. We'll be putting gold into the circuit stocks over the duration of August, and we expect to strip and pour first gold by the end of the month. So it's really, when you consider that we only got on the ground here in November last year, it's been a fantastic achievement from our development team to basically build this plant and have it operational within 9 months. So we're very proud of that achievement. The other deposit I'll just touch on very briefly, the other 158,000 ounces of our reserves are at Earlston. As I mentioned, Earlston's 45 kilometres south of Moolart Well, but only 10 kilometres away from Garden Well. It's a 2 million tonne deposit at 2.4 grams. And as we do the work to confirm that Garden Well is a standalone operation, this deposit will end up being additional mill feed for the Garden Well plant. It's got cash costs of around 650 Australian dollars an ounce. Then I guess the really exciting thing that's emerged at the company over the last 12 months since we've been here is really the fact that we can see now a very strong pipeline of project development that should realistically see this company in 15 months to 18 months from now have a reserve base of between 1.8 to 2 million ounces. And basically the strategy that we're embarking on there is to drill out the Garden Well deposit, which I'll talk about in more detail momentarily. We've got a lot of work to do in the oxide zone at Moolart Well, where it's been very poorly drilled, and that resource should continue to increase and get converted to reserve as we do that work. And then we've got a number of other resource positions across the tenement package that will convert to lesser or greater extent to reserves as we do infill drilling and reserve studies. So I guess the point that I'd really like to make here, that this is a pipeline of project development. It's not a pipe dream. These are projects that we've got in the portfolio today, and this doesn't rely on any acquisition or discovery. This is real, and it's just projects that need resource drill outs and conversion work. So the tenement package looks something like this, with Moolart Well sitting up in the north, Garden Well 30 kilometres to the south, and then there's a number of resource positions across that tenement package, as I mentioned, that are all within eminent truckable distance to either of those two plants. And from those resource positions across the tenement package, we do expect over the next 12 months or so to convert something in the order of 100,000 ounces from those resources into the mineable portfolio. The Moolart Well oxide zone, as I mentioned, what you're looking at on this slide is a plan view of the oxide zone at Moolart Well. So if you can imagine that the laterites have been stripped off and you're looking at the zone from 20 to 80 metres, and you can see that the only areas that have reserve pit outlines on them is down in the southernmost 1 kilometre of the deposit area. The rest of the oxide zone in the remaining 4 kilometres of strike at Moolart Well has only been drilled out on the tightest areas of 50 by 50 metres. So over the next 12 months we'll be doing a lot of drilling here to convert a lot of those resources to reserve. And if you've had a look at our quarterly, you see that we've put out some very good numbers on the first phase of that drilling. So that's just work that'll be ongoing, and we do expect realistically, given that we've got a plant sitting right on top of this deposit, that we'll get another 150 to 200,000 ounces out of that resource oxide zone.